Well, hi there, folks. This is our next Meet the Speaker interview leading up to the Mysterious Earth Conference on the 7th and 8th of September. So we've got Greg Moffitt. So, hi, Greg.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah, it's good to see you again. You were with us last year as well, so it's great to have you back. And you've got a fantastic title of The Sound of the Stones, Archaeoacoustics and the Ancients. We'll look at that in a minute. But good idea just to you've got a really impressive background, actually, probably more impressive than all the others. Because the different things that you've done in your life have been incredible. I mean, you were a famous musician in the previous life.
Well, I
Um,
mean, notorious would be a word that I use more than famous, but yeah.
it was what's it was you mentioned the name of Damien Grigori, is that right?
Yeah, Damien, the whole Grigori thing was completely made up by the singer in that band. It was a result of like one press release, but it just propagated itself. So yeah.
So that's fantastic. And you were the keyboard player. I think you obviously travelled and you were on the road with the band for quite a while.
Yeah, about 3 years. So yeah, it was a really interesting experience, not something that I ever attempted to get into. I mean, I played music, when I was a teenager in the 80s, and I had maybe a band together at school and thought it might be nice to do something with that, but it was never taken seriously. And I just stumbled into that situation in 1995 and found myself being a professional musician for 3 years. So who knew?
Well, I mean,
Life
that's
throws these
incredible.
curveballs at you.
Absolutely. I mean, who can say that they've been a rock star? It's like wow. Everybody wanted to be one. You've actually
I
done it.
know. I know. I feel a little bit guilty because I wasn't even trying, you know.
Things just happen sometimes, don't they? They really do. They come out of nowhere.
They
But
do. When people say to me the ideas about particularly when they're young, about planning their lives and stuff, and at age 30, I'm going to be whatever, a lawyer, and and I'm going to start a family, I'm going to have my mortgage paid off by such and such a date. I mean, I don't understand that mentality at all, but it's like good luck with that because
well,
life just,
yeah,
life isn't like that.
it isn't. No, I mean, I don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up. I've still not decided that one. I think a lot of those um, sort of pre-planned ideas come from not from the person themselves. They're kind of the parents say, "This is what I want you to do," and you live in somebody else's life instead of your own. Because your own life is spontaneous, isn't it? If you're going in the right direction.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I must say that for one reason or another, I had no pressure coming at all from parentals in terms of like, you must do this, you must do that. The vibe generally was it was very passive, but the vibe was if you're happy, we're happy. And what more can you ask for, really?
Absolutely, yeah. My parents were the same. Right. And
Yeah,
then,
well, there you go.
so sorry.
In fact, there's something in this in a video that Thomas Sheridan released, I think it was today, but where he was talking about awakening.
Hmm.
So you and I and Thomas all have mutual connections.
Yeah,
So, but
yeah,
there's something in the background, the childhood background and growing up, relating to the video that Thomas released today. So I'm just reminded of it because literally it was something I watched this morning, or whenever it came out, and yeah, so it really
yeah.
got me thinking about how I came into the world and how he and I and you and I and all three of us and our network have got something in common.
It's definitely, yeah. I mean, I was the same as Thomas. Really, I kind of came into the world thinking, I think I'm in the wrong place. Like I've done this a bit of a mistake, and I still kind of think that now. But yeah, so I was. I never went through awakening period. I think I was always just out of the real world anyway, and saw things from my own point of view. So it must be very difficult. Thomas was saying, wasn't he, that for somebody who's had a set um, life idea all their lives, and suddenly they realise it's a mistake and that everything's not what it seems like. That must be a very difficult thing to deal with. But luckily, I've never had to deal with it.
No, I can't imagine it, to be honest. And I think that this, well, the words you used a moment ago and what Thomas mentioned in his video, this idea that um, not that there's something wrong, but that this reality isn't what it's painted to be. It's not what's fed to us, you know what I mean, in terms of like this is how reality is. This is what the world is. This is what's going on this planet. Um, for some reason, from day one, I was like, I'm not sure about that. And
Yeah, mm.
so
I definitely agree. Yeah, you you just didn't you just knew that it was some sort of game, and there's a real truth out there to be found. So I think I just spent more time looking for the real truth rather than just fitting in to one that had been provided with by the news, the media, and the way everybody behaves. I mean, at school, it was like I wasn't even there really. I wasn't there. I didn't go. But it was, yeah, it was always searching for, well, what's really happening then?
yeah, and so many. It's ironic, really, in the the modern scientific industrial age. The way that so many people view reality. That for the longest time, most of human history that we have any evidence about, the spiritual traditions, what later turned into religions, and all sorts of occult philosophy tell us these things. They tell us,
Mm.
do not be deceived by this vision of the world. It's not what you think it is, and it's only a tiny sliver of a reality so vast we can scarcely imagine it. So, and I think that we find that out, ironically enough, when we die. Life's a dream. When you die, you wake up.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what the old occult traditions really were early science, weren't they? I mean, that's what people um, took that as the truth, and then science became something, and religion became something, and just went off into two separate directions. And anything that was at all occult or hidden or anything supernatural was you can't believe that. That's just insane. It's evil, and so it in that way it got trampled down. I think it was actually. I think it was coming. Science and occult was coming starting to meld in a little bit, and then everything just went hey just recently with a
The Hadron Collider.
yeah that's the thing yeah well things were coming becoming more occult with that weren't they with suggestion and all this sort of thing but and then for some reason it all stopped again. I mean they had the lockdowns and everything and the science took over again.
Yeah, that was a. You're right, it did, though. I think that's unraveling quickly. Certainly, when you look at headlines, anybody go to the Daily Telegraph website and look at their recent headlines that might be concerned with the events of the last few years, and that's mainstream as it gets. I mean, Thomas references this thing in the Telegraph as well. So I would say you're right about the scientism, scientific mindset resurging like that. But as I say, that I think that's short lived.
Yeah, probably. It always it's always seems that there's a few people in every generation, a very small amount of people that ever really sort of see the way things really are. And I mean, it seems like it's more because we speak to each other and we all agree and we all got different ideas that we can share. But as soon as you go down the pub, you realise you really are in a very, very small minority.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if bit of a just some ideas just popped into my head, bit of a curveball. If there was ever a historical figure, Jesus Christ, who existed, I think he was one of these people, and that's why people paid attention to him because he was saying, "This isn't what you think it is," you know, and that reality is malleable, you know. So I thought if he ever existed, he was some kind of
An adept.
warrior,
Mm.
poet, magician type of, figure.
Yeah, I think of him as an adept because if you read whether he existed or not, well, he's portrayed as an adept, and in the Bible, there's lots of truths in the New Testament which people don't even seem to cling hold of, but they are there. So it's as if these mysteries are trying to be passed down, and through the figure of Jesus and through the New Testament. But even again, religion then just points you off in a misdirection, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's striking how different the Old Testament and New Testament are, isn't it? In terms
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
well, in every dimension, really.
I'm just off down to the Cathar country in a couple of days, so that was the duality thing, basically. Anyway, this aside, so you left the music industry, or you moved into journalism. Was that sort of journalistic side of the music industry, or just general journalism?
No, it was music journalism, and I actually did that before I became a musician. So I started publishing a fanzine in the late 80s. And then in 1990, I got paid for the first time for writing an article about music.
Wow.
So I continued to do that. And then I went into this relatively brief sojourn of like being a pro musician. And when I came back out of that, it kind of made sense to me anyway to go back into music journalism, which I then did until, I mean, I gradually extricated myself from it, but I think it would have been like 2013, 2014 when I wrote my last article about music. So I kept that going for a long time. Basically, it was
Yeah.
becoming untenable
Mm.
as a living, because of all the changes. I mean, it started a long time ago. You think back to the advent, the mass adaptation of the internet, the effect that that had on music and films. Like think back to Napster, that controversy. Who remembers Napster? Um, but over a long period of time, it just got harder and harder and harder to make a career in an industry that was rapidly being drained of like any source of income.
It's such a shame, isn't it? And all the Simon Cowell thing and all this. I mean, we were so lucky. Well, we grew up in this multi-universe of music, or fantastic life, really, but fantastic history, music history. But now it's pretty much been ruined, hasn't it? I mean, Simon Cowell stuff, and there's nothing really good that comes along anymore.
No, I mean who are the big stars of today? I mean, someone like Taylor Swift. How does she make her money? It's through live concerts. It's probably through merchandising. But certainly not through music sales.
Well, they're saying that I heard one journalist saying that Taylor Swift is one of the best musicians there's ever been, and she, well, I just can't work it out. This girl singing. I don't know. There's
Well,
nothing left of the industry.
I've got to tread carefully here because my girlfriend's just been to Edinburgh for the weekend to see Taylor Swift. So
Right. Let's moving on then. Yeah. But it was a great life being a music journalist. That's two fantastic things, isn't it, that you've done there?
oh yeah, and that's I say when in the late 90s and early 2000s when there was still money in the industry, um, the ability was there to travel, to go to different countries, do stories about bands and about events and stuff. And yeah, it was a wonderful time, wonderful experience, really.
Well, then you actually moving on to one more thing. You've written a book,
Beyond
Worthy
Time and
Art.
Space. The Art of Paul Raymond Gregory. Yeah, that was co-authored by me, because there was two. Paul Raymond Gregory is, if you don't know him, don't know his work, look him up. If you're interested in fantasy artwork, if you're interested in Tolkien, this is what Paul specializes in illustrating. His artwork is astounding, but the guy is possibly the most modest human being I've ever met, the least likely to blow his own trumpet, but his work is up there with any of the great artists
Wow.
of the 20th or 21st century. So this book is compiles all of his work, illustrating Tolkien, which would and the stuff written in the book about that was done by a Tolkien expert, but also he's famous for his heavy metal album covers, and that's the section of the book that I wrote about. So the book is still available.
Yeah.
But yeah, just look him up online, Paul Raymond Gregory. The guy is an astounding talent.
Right, yeah. So if you still got, have you still got copies yourself that you can
Oh,
send out?
Paul does it his website.
Right.
Studio 54 is his website.
You go 54 dot. Okay. So the most recent thing, obviously, that I've been on and Thomas has been on, I think we've been on together, is your podcast at legalizefreedom.com, which covers some amazing subjects. It's really brilliant. And tell us about legalizefreedom.com.
Well, just go to legalizefreedom.com. It's all there. But yeah, this is something I've been doing for many years now, over a decade. And it features people like yourself, Thomas, just basically any subject matter or any writers or filmmakers or whatever who create material that interests me. And that's quite a broad base. But yeah, it's been doing very well. I'm delighted with the success of it, and about 100,000 streams or downloads a month.
Wow, that's some going, isn't it? And it really is good. I don't know how you find all the people to interview because they're some really fascinating people. You really do.
Well, I mean, to be honest with you, it's not even a question of finding them. It's like trying to find time for it all because there's so much there.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just about to release a talk with a guy about his book is called well, basically it's Coma. I'm trying to remember the subtitle now, but it's about altered states of consciousness and the state that coma basically and near-death experiences, etc. And it's one of the most astounding books I've ever read. So that's coming up, and I recommend it to anybody. If you read one book this year, make it his. Alan Pierce is the author. But again, that'll be legalizefreedom.com within the next few days. And it's just having experiences like reading his book and talking with him that just reminds me why I'm doing this
absolutely.
and what a despite all the darkness and the disturbing things happening on this planet, just what an amazing experience it is just to be alive, just to be human for 70 or whatever.
I hope it's a bit more because I'm getting up there now. So
Well, yeah, of course.
we score of one, 2-2.
Keep eating those greens.
You'll have some more. Another score I'll do. But yeah, it's like we were saying earlier on, isn't it? We spend our life learning, trying to find out um, what's really going on in the what's all this really all about. And so your podcast is really continuing that search, isn't it? And I suppose conference and the and hopefully my tours are the same thing.
Yeah, fundamentally they are. It's all rooted in the same thing, isn't it? You have the conference you've been running out for, what is it? This is the 16th year, I think, coming up.
16th year, yeah.
Yeah, and all the people that you've, the guests that you had, and all the subjects they've talked about, and then everything you do with your megalithic tours, it's fundamentally the same thing at root, isn't it? It's like what's going on on this rock?
Absolutely. No, we get so it's 20 years now with the tours, but the amount of conversations you think, look, the subjects we've covered over 20 years, and it's astounding, really. But like it's good. It's all adding to people's understanding and people. Not that I'm adding to it, but just the conversation you have with anybody. Ideas come and you swap them, and long may it continue, really. So I suppose looking at the conference, the idea of the acoustics, I think it's about, is that the acoustics of, well, without giving away what the talk will be. I mean, can you give it a little edge into it?
Yeah, it's essentially, if you look up archaeoacoustics online, you'll get a Wikipedia entry that basically explains what that discipline is. It's a relatively new thing, and it's still there's more people getting involved in it, but it's still quite specialist, shall we say? And it's really about, I mean, archaeology. What is it? Archaeoacoustics, archaeoastronomy. All these things with archaeo in front of them are just telling you, looking at the relationship with whatever the discipline happens to be with human beings in the past. So it's really about the sound world of of the ancient world, and it fascinates me because it's something that is, as I say, even though there's more people looking at it, it's something that in archaeology that hasn't really been taken seriously or explored, and because of my interest in music and in sound, it's been this huge part of my life. Well, what was the sound world like 5,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, before the Ice Age? How did human beings experience sound? And we know it was very important. But again, this is just not, widely talked about. And I'm no expert, so I'm going to be doing what I did last year, basically, which is, bringing a generalist bit of infotainment, and talking about it from how I see it in my perspective. And yeah, it's just, when did human beings start to sing? When did they start to make music? What did the world sound like 20,000 years ago? All the traffic, all the television, radio, internet, none of that was there. So all the nature sounds were there, animals, waves, wind, all of that. But what did the world sound like? And I've always had a fascination with that. And it's just something that I want to ramble on about for an hour.
Yeah, that's going to be fantastic. I mean, without any, you've got to go a long way now to find anywhere where there isn't any sort of sounds from the modern world, haven't you? But when you do, it is so peaceful. It's like a place on the Isle of Man that we can go to, well, into the gorges, and all you can hear is the birds tweeting and a waterfall and a bit of wind and the trees rustling and nothing at all. No cars, and if you don't speak, the people. So it's a totally different experience.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a bit like light pollution. A lot of people who, myself, I'm always been interested in astronomy. And I remember going back to the 80s watching Sir Patrick Moore on the Sky at Night. And you'll remember him, of course,
Yeah,
the,
yeah,
long,
of course, yeah, yeah.
the longest running television show ever, I think, not just in Britain, but ever. And
Yeah.
speaking about the difficulty of experiencing seeing the stars at night, because of light pollution, you have to go, even if you travel out of a city, you still have to go a very long way before the light from that city is no longer impacting on your view of the stars. Much the same with sound, and you're right. I mean, it's one thing I will also be addressing in the talk is our relationship with sound in the modern era and how uncomfortable we are with silence. People are really,
Absolutely.
really uncomfortable with not talking or just being in silence, or just, we've created this culture now where we have to fill up our spaces with some kind of sound, anything at all, even just babble, as long as it isn't quiet, because people are really uneasy with that.
That is strange. Yeah, I mean, it's like putting the radio on in the background, isn't it? Why do people do? They're not listening to it, but there has to be something just playing in the background, isn't it? If you think about it, I never actually thought about it, but that is really quite unusual, isn't it? It's
It
really,
is.
really a strange thing that we do. But everybody seems to do it. They're putting the television on. They're not watching it, but they just want to know that it's there, that something happening in the house. So, yeah, that's really
Yeah,
strange.
people sometimes talk about it as a comfort thing. It's kind
Mm,
of, especially if they're on their own. Oh, well, I put the television on because it's a voice in the background. So, it's kind of, it's reassuring or whatever, it's, which is odd in itself. And if you read anything at all about meditation practice, you can see that's one of the things that people struggle with the most is stilling the voice in their head. Now, there are different types of meditation. Not all of them are about silencing that inner voice. Some of them are actually about focusing on that,
yeah,
discursive meditation, for example. But still, it's just something we really seem to be uneasy with. And it's also another thing I'm going to mention, not to preempt myself, um, is what was one of the most unsettling things that not many people paid attention to about the C19 phase.
mm, mm,
A lot of people
yeah, yeah,
spoke about
yeah,
silence, and as
mm,
much as people said, oh, wasn't it great to have, the skies free of planes and the rivers free of pollution, famous example in Venice, in Italy. But I think a lot of people were really uneasy with that dystopian post-apocalyptic
yeah.
silence in the streets.
I certainly noticed it. When we first started going out again, that there was no cars and there was nobody, and it was and no planes going over it. It was just, it was post-apocalyptic, wasn't it? It was. That's what it would be like if something terrible did happen like that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, that
something
was
terrible did happen.
it. Did happen. Yeah, you're not kidding
Yeah.
me. Um, Another thing, I remember over in Malta when we had the group. They had these sort of reed instruments, and they would go into the various temples, and they would play the reed instruments and get this frequency of the actual site. And then we were in a Knights Templar Hall as well, and they did the same thing. And they said it's not just. They said every building has a frequency, and so they would go up the scale and down, and then what you knew it was so obvious that they just found the right frequency. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Talking about these, well, in terms of megalithic sites, there's a resonant frequency, well, for all buildings, for example, but particularly megalithic sites, like the passage graves, and the tombs and whatnot. Um, and that was an important part, I think, in their design and construction, in terms of what they were used for. And this is another thing I think that's been overlooked in ancient archaeology. For example, the some of the stones at Stonehenge, the inner surfaces of them being concave. The idea was doing that potentially was to so that sound would be resonantly reflected around the site, and also potentially, again, highly speculative, that the bluestones that were transported from Wales. I've recently read a story that debunked that, but who knows? But they were chosen for, again, some kind of resonant quality, and that's why they were important. And nothing like that could be sourced locally.
It's a bit because I mean, I'm sure that there was some sort of ancient technology and physics that we've gone another direction. We don't really understand it anymore. And I'm sure sound was really part of that physics. I mean, I've always had this idea about um, gravity. We don't really understand gravity, and I'm wondering whether there was a certain frequency that he could meet that would in some way reduce the effect of gravity, make things lighter. I mean, that again is massive speculation, but is that part of that ancient physics?
And that's something I'm going to get into
Oh,
because
sorry.
I'm going back pre-Ice Age. I'm going back to civilizations that Rudolf Steiner spoke about. Now, we don't know where he got his insights. That's neither here nor there. As I say, the talk will be quite speculative, but there's no reason to think that the rules of nature, so-called, apply everywhere. So for example, gravity, as you mentioned, a lot of even Rupert Sheldrake, the biologist, has pointed this out, that the rules of nature are more like habits, and there's no reason why they can't change over time. So has gravity on the Earth always been the same? Maybe not. I've got a talk at legalizefreedom.com speculating about the size that life forms were able to grow in the prehistoric era, dinosaurs, giant insects, all these other things. Biologically, they don't make sense with current conditions on the Earth. So, but if gravity was less, it would allow them to grow to a bigger size, that potential. So that's something I'll be looking into. And there's other, I mean, Steiner speculates about human beings being less material in the eras and the eons that were known as Lemuria, Atlantis, all of this. Again, who knows? But the point is, it's something we could allow into our imagination because I think we have a tendency, God knows, never mind since the end of the Ice Age, or since Greece and Rome or Egypt or whatever, but even in the last 150, 200 years of really seeing the world as it's presented to us during that time, and that almost the distant past is just can be discarded and it's got nothing to teach us. And I think that's one of the reasons why actually as a species we're in such dire straits.
Yeah, I mean, Steiner and Edward Casey as well spoke of people of
Hmm.
Atlantis being having different pressures and different on them, so they could have reacted and grew in different ways. And I mean, it would. How great would it be if kids at school were taught this is how it is now, but not necessarily how it used to be. The things change, and it's yeah, fascinating. It really is. Anyway, I think we don't want to go too far into it because you've got your talk to do. I don't
Yes.
want to ruin it for them.
And
Yes,
I've been doing a lot of work on that, by the way. So I've been frantically making notes and whatnot. So I'll be ready when the time comes.
yeah, brilliant. Really looking forward to it. And thanks for sharing your thoughts with it. It's been fascinating. I feel like we could have gone on all night, but better not. It's a Mysterious Earth conference over the 7th and 8th of September, and it's in lovely St. on Sea. Really easy to get to. And all the information's on my website, which is megalithic tours.com. And your Greg, your website, I suppose, was legalizefreedom.com, wasn't it?
Yes, legalize-freedom.com. You can spell legalize with an S or a Z if you're an American. It's I'll get you there.
Well, that's clever. Brilliant. So definitely look up Greg's work and come to the conference to see him. And thanks for again, Greg, and see you all there. Bye for now.
Thanks.